Okay, so let's jump right in. We've all heard stories about kings, right? You've got the great ones and, well, the truly terrible ones. But what really makes a leader good? It's a huge question, one that has literally shaped history. So think about it for a second. Who's a leader from history you really admire? If you're in Korea, a lot of people might say King Sejong. And why? Because he genuinely seemed to care about his people, creating policies that actually help them. It just goes to show you, right? A ruler's character, their heart, that's what really defines a nation's future. And I mean, the difference is just night and day, isn't it? A good king loves the people, creates fair laws, and the whole nation thrives. But a bad king? They just exploit everyone for their own gain, and everything falls apart. This whole thing really boils down to one crucial idea. And that idea is sovereignty. It's basically the right to rule, the supreme authority. And wow, is it important. You can have a country's people and its territory, but of those three essential elements, sovereignty is the most critical. Just look at Korean history during the Japanese occupation. It's such a powerful example. When a nation loses its sovereignty, its people suffer a lot. You know, even today, with our elected leaders, they're still just people, right? They can be flawed, they can misuse their power, and sometimes, the really good ones, we don't even realize how great they were until they're gone. It all kind of leaves you wondering, is there such a thing as a perfect ruler? You know, one who's always just, always wise, and rules forever? Well, today we're going to dive into a story that's all about that very search. And it starts with a nation whose very first king was said to be God himself. So yeah, let's talk about this nation, Israel. They started out with a really unique kind of government. It's called a theocracy, which basically means God was their king.
So the story goes, after he rescued them from being slaves in Egypt, God makes this incredible deal with them, a covenant. He basically says, I'll be your king, I'll protect you, I'll guide you if you'll be my people. And the law of this new kingdom, it was super simple, but also incredibly deep.
The whole thing was built on the 10 Commandments, but the core idea was this: love God and love your neighbor. Simple, right? Well, there was a catch. The people couldn't see their king. And they started looking around at all the other nations with their human kings, and they got antsy. So can you believe it? They wanted to be like everybody else so badly that they rejected their perfect, unseen king for a flawed, human one they could see. The story says God knew this was going to happen, and he gave them a warning, a really chilling one, about what these human kings would be like. And what's really interesting is that way before this, the book of Deuteronomy had already set out a bunch of rules for any future king. It was like a game plan to stop them from becoming corrupt, which, power tends to do. The rules were pretty straightforward. Don't get a huge army. Don't make corrupt political marriages. Don't hoard a bunch of money for yourself. Keep reading God's law, and hey, don't get a big head. It was all designed to keep the king humble and focused on the people. So how do you think that went? Yeah, you probably guessed it. Most of the kings just failed. They completely ignored the rules. They built up their armies, got rich, exploited the people, exactly what they were warned about. Even the best of them, King David, wasn't perfect. And this whole cycle of failure, this constant disappointment, it all sets the stage for a totally different kind of king to show up. So in the middle of all this mess with bad kings, a promise starts to emerge. The story says that God was going to send a true king, one who would actually get it right and rule perfectly. In the Christian faith, that promised king is Jesus. Now, this is where things get really wild. Look at this comparison. It just flips our whole idea of what a king should be completely on its head. I mean, the world expected a king in a palace, but Jesus shows up in a manger. They expected a golden crown, and he gets a crown of thorns. It's the total opposite. His whole life was about humility. He didn't even have his own home. Instead of hanging out with the rich and powerful, he spent his time with outcasts, tax collectors, prostitutes. And think about this. He had all this power, but he never, ever forced anyone to follow him. He always respected their choice. And that right there, that gets us to the very core of what his kingdom is all about. Okay, so picture this. Jesus is on trial for his life. He's standing in front of Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor, the most powerful guy around. And in that moment, he lays out exactly who he is and what his kingdom is. He says, "You say that I am a king? In fact, The reason I was born and came into the world is to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me. So what does that mean? It means his kingdom isn't about armies or political games. It's based on something completely different, truth itself. And not just shows how radically different his way of ruling is. Think about it. Other kings use their people to get power. Jesus did the opposite. He humbled himself to serve them. He totally redefined what power is. It's not about dominating people, it's about love. It's not about being served. True greatness is about serving others. And liberation, it comes through sacrifice. So he wore that crown of thorns and he was lifted up on a cross. And in this story, that's not his defeat. That's his greatest act as a king. The belief is that he gave his own life to pay for our wrongs, to free his people, not from some earthly enemy, but from being slaves to sin. And that is why he's called the King of Kings. So, all of this whole ancient story, it brings us to a really personal question for today. Because, let's be honest, we're all looking for a good ruler in our lives, some kind of guiding principle, right? The question becomes, who will you choose to be your king? We've talked about this idea of Jesus as a perfect king, one who rules with love and truth and sacrifice, not with force. It really makes you think about what kind of leadership you want to follow in your own life.
And if you choose to follow this king, what does that look like? Well, for believers, it means living his way. It starts with just acknowledging his loving rule in your life. Then you adopt his main rule, love God. And finally, you put his law into practice in the world, love your neighbor.
We really hope this look into a different kind of rule was helpful for you. If you got something out of this explainer, subscribing, liking, and dropping a comment really is a huge encouragement for us to make the next one. Thanks so much for watching.